Hey there, can you introduce yourself for the people?
Sure. I am Mike Seatown, 1/5 of Dead End Hip Hop. I also do um, stuff on my own, vinyl videos. I do concert reviews, some solo hip hop album reviews, and yeah, that's it. I'm
And
a dork.
what's that you're drinking? Rolling Rock?
No, this is actually like it was a bottle of ginger beer, but I just mixed it
Ah,
with some whiskey and poured it back into the bottle.
yeah, cool.
That way
Um,
you don't dirty a glass.
yeah. How was your week been, man?
It has not been too bad. I was actually off Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Dead and Hip Hop went and spoke at FSU on Thursday, so that was actually pretty awesome. So
Wait, it was a sociology of hip hop, was it?
yeah, sociology of hip hop course, one of the first of its kind. And
Wow.
the two professors asked us to come down and speak to their class. So
How did you
that
feel
was awesome.
when you first figured out that you guys were being asked to do it? How did you feel? Like what?
Well, a few things, man. I first thought it was going to be some bullshit. I was like, there's no way that there's a legitimate class at FSU that wants to hear like us come talk.
Hmm.
And then we had like weird culture shocks. We got there, and of course, I'm expecting a certain type of person to be the professor. And when we get there, it's one of them is this really thin, pretty little white lady, and the other one's this very college looking white guy. Both of them ended up being the nicest people in the world, but I was expecting a black male to be
Yeah.
sociology of hip hop, and it wasn't. But yeah, it was really cool, man.
Was it a purely a Q and A? Did you guys lecture at all? Do you have written material when you went in or what?
No written material. It was basically we just kind of showed up. They asked us a couple questions, and then the students just started going in, and then it just turned into like a basic hip hop show. We just started talking, and people are bouncing stuff off of us, and we're bouncing stuff off of them. So I mean, we recorded it, so it'll be up. I'm not sure when, probably in like a couple of weeks or something like that. But it was definitely one of the coolest things we've done so far.
Awesome. And have you been to Tallahassee before?
I've been to Tallahassee one time before. Probably 14 years ago.
Hmm.
My old band played there, and I was telling the professor this too. We were supposed to play at some pizza place, and apparently they didn't get it cleared or something, so we ended up playing in the parking lot of the pizza place. And within like maybe 30 minutes, the cops showed up and shut everything down and told us to, get the fuck on. So that was my only experience with Tallahassee, and but now I have a new love for it. So it was a cool little place.
I asked because you did this you sent out a tweet about like some girl saying some weird shit to you guys when you walked into the bar. What
Yeah.
what, what happened?
Um, so we got to Tallahassee maybe around about 12 or 12:30, and I wanted to drink. After being in a van for 4.5 hours with those guys, I was like, dude, I need something. So one of the professors, the guy, his name's Andrew, he came by and met us, and then took us across the street to this bar. And as we're walking up to the door, I'm showing the guy my ID, and I look over, and there's this white chick, and she's hanging out with these two black dudes, and the white chick, and she's dancing, and she jumps up and she's like, "Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Oh, this for all my niggas." And I was just like, "Oh my God, are you fucking serious?" I looked at B and I was like, "Did you hear that?" And he was like, "Yeah, I heard it." I'm like, "Oh, this is not going to be a good situation." But
It's
I don't
like
know. I
one of
guess
those.
she thought like the fact that she was wearing a Coogi jacket. I guess she thought she had enough street cred to start yelling out shit like that. But
It's like one of those record scratch moments in a bad comedy movie trailer. It's like, what you
yeah,
say?
it was
Um,
like slow motion or something. Like it was weird, man. It was weird.
I've heard a lot of crazy stories about Florida. I have family down there, and it is pretty weird. Every time I go down, something strange happens with the. I don't know. I guess it's just strange culture. But
Where's the family?
West Palm Beach.
Oh, you're lying. I used to
Yeah.
live there.
Really?
I used
So,
to live in West Palm. Yeah,
so
dude.
you met a lot of
I
Haitians then.
lasted, yes, and Jews. I think
Okay.
that's pretty much all that's there in West
Haitians and
Palm, like
Jews.
Boca. Yeah, like I lived in between Boca and West Palm.
Okay,
Um,
you said
but it was a go ahead,
you lasted how long? You say?
like 2 months, 3 months maybe.
Whoa! How like so? What happened? Did they
It
run
was
you out? What?
it was awful, dude. It was awful, man. I mean, it was one of the worst experiences of my life, and I moved down there to live with my best friend, and it just didn't go well, man.
Oh,
It
please,
was just
please
a
tell me
horrible
what.
place.
Just like some moments, like what like drove the nail in.
Oh, well, what drove the okay, so I moved in with my best friend, and he moved his girlfriend at the time and their kid in right before I got there. So I was living with him, his girlfriend, and her like 8-year-old kid.
Hmm.
And I can say this now, I hated that fucking kid. That kid
Oh,
was a little Chucky doll fucking bastard. And he used to wake me up every morning banging on pots and pans. He was just, oh, it was just awful, man. So like I started having to like, because he wouldn't hang out anymore, so I had to like go out and find friends for myself. So I ended up like hanging out with this weird like goth girl
is she
who
the one
like
who?
turned out, huh?
No, no. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, no. Well, she turned out to be like a cutter, and then she started like cutting herself whenever we would have like disagreements. And I was just like,
Dog.
this isn't really the situation that I'm like, this isn't what I signed up for.
All right, I'm getting into the deep shit right now. We're getting into the deep questions with Mike.
All
I
right.
heard Spike Lee say during an interview with Pharrell that he feels like music is the closest art form to God, and I guess for him, God, I'm just gonna assume he means perfection or the purest form of creativity and self-expression. And you're really into music, and I'm wondering how you feel. I mean, if you could sort of rank self-expression into a pantheon or something like that, how do you feel music relates to the visual arts and dance, fashion, all that stuff, any type of expression?
I think music is at the top, man. I don't think there's anything more expressive than music. Um, I heard that Lee quote,
Mm.
but it brings up another quote. I'm not sure if you heard Killer Mike's rap music, but
Yeah.
he has that line on, it's either the last song or the second to last song, where he says that the closest he got to church was listening to rap music. And I mean, I'm the same way. I don't go to church, but people get their morals and their ideals and lots of things from going to religious establishments. I don't do that, but I get a lot of what I believe from other artists.
Mm-hmm.
I think that music can teach you a lot, can teach you a lot of life lessons, and I think when it comes to the arts, I think it's at the top. It's to me, it's more important than film. It's more important
Mm-hmm.
than anything else. It's the easiest way to express yourself, I think.
Easiest, really.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's the easiest way to get your point across. With film, I feel like it's a little easier to misinterpret certain things. Because you could have a guy. I don't know. I don't want to get too abstract, but like if you're even if you're watching something that's as simple as an Adam Sandler movie, if you really wanted to get weird, you could like try to pull some kind of like esoteric idea from why he ran around the corner and got punched in the nose or whatever. But
Yeah.
with music, I guess with music you can do the same thing. I
Right.
guess I don't know. I guess I'm just rambling, but I don't know. With music, to me, it just makes the most sense.
Hmm. I do. I do feel like it's sort of like if art were a drug, it just seems like that's music is just tapping right into the vein. It's getting you as close as possible to the purest image. I mean, because any sort of communication is from point A to point B, and I've always wondered about that. If someone has an
Right.
idea and they're trying to transmit it to you, what is the purest way for you to get it? I mean, even music is a diluted form of whatever idea the person wants to get to you.
Well,
I
you
sorry,
know
go ahead.
what? Actually, now that I think about it, just from what you just said, if you really think about it this way, if you're relating film and music, with film, a director is going to give you his idea the way he wants it. You know, if he wants his idea to be a thin, 5 foot tall black male walks into a store and shakes the hand of a thin Arabic man. You're going to see exactly that. You're going to see exactly the way he wanted you to see that. But with music, all he's doing is he's giving you his idea, and then you have to interpret it for yourself. You have to put it through your own eyes, and you know what I mean? Like, you are getting that idea, that central idea, and you're processing it in your own terms, in your own way, so it makes sense
Yeah.
to you. You know what I mean?
What you're this is getting more complex now because what you're saying is, and you're right. There are less there are less components you're dealing with. You're only dealing with sound. I mean, with the exception of
Right.
like a lot of artists try and use album artwork and stuff like that to sort of flavor the sounding of how the music sounds. But I
Right.
mean, you're only using one sense, so you're kind of just. I see what you're getting at. It's just like when you're reading a book. I mean, you only have
Yep.
the text, so you have to do a lot of legwork in the back of your head. And when
Exactly.
Eminem is doing when he's singing "Bad Guy," you're imagining a dude speeding down the freeway, and you interpret
Right.
it your way. And I guess there's a lot of man. I never really thought about that. Mm.
I think it makes it stick more. Like the harder you work for something, the bigger the payoff typically
Ah,
is. You know, so when you have to really think about something like Death Grips lyrics, when you're reading through Death Grips lyrics and you have to really analyze them, that shit sticks with you later on, rather than a Taylor Swift song that just is just catchy and simple and straight to the point. You know what I mean?
yeah. And then I listened. I was trying to listen to some Current '93 because you mentioned that band a few times, and
Yes,
because they're your favorite, correct?
all time.
Okay, so I listened to a Sad Sadness song, and I was
Yes,
like, man, this is just making me this is making me sad. I guess that's the power, right? You if
it
someone
is,
people who go through breakups make the best music. People
bruh.
who I mean, but this seems to translate through all arts though. Visually, like you're going through a bad breakup or something, someone in your life dies, you end up making the craziest shit. But
I 100%.
oh man, where would someone start with Current '93? Their
Um,
first album is that?
no, 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 no. No, don't start with their first album. If you started with their first album, you'd probably never pick up anything else by them again because their first album was nothing but really bizarre soundscapes, tape loops, weird vocal samples, chanting. If you're not into that kind of music, that shit would turn you off immediately.
uh,
If you were going to start with Current 93, I'd say start with something like Thunder Perfect Mind, or Soft Black Stars. Both of those albums are relatively easy to process. I would never say they're accessible because nothing Current 93 has ever done is accessible, but it's easier to digest. It's
yeah.
not so off-putting.
So speaking of off-putting stuff, you were mentioning about the No Love Deep Web album, about like the sort of controversial album artwork, and you said like, all right, it's not that crazy. I mean, we all have dicks, blah blah blah. Are there any Is there any album artwork that's kind of shocking to you that actually just bugs you, even if it's not explicit? Can you show us anything that's just kind of weird?
I mean, I can show you a record I actually just bought. So I just have a stack of crap here that I haven't put on my shelf yet. Um, so I don't know if you're familiar with Einsters in the Neubauten.
What? No.
Um, that's this.
Einstürzen den Naubauten.
Yeah, they're a German noise group. They're really important because they were one of the first groups to actually they created their own instruments. Like they were trying to take industrial noise as far as they could take it. But you know, like when I was saying, a dick doesn't really freak me out that much. Like this. Oh wait, yeah, here we go. I don't know if
Try
you
to
can
take it
see
out
what
the
that.
sleeve. Yeah, it'll help.
That's good idea. You're smart, a lot smarter than me. Yeah, so That
Oh,
is a
whoa! I just see it. Oh, wow. I
you
didn't. I wasn't seeing it before. I was.
and see, stuff like that doesn't
Oh,
really
jeez.
do anything to me. I'm like, oh, that's a cool cover. I actually really like this cover a lot.
That is weird. I thought it was just a red horse. Oh,
No, it's
Jesus
red
Christ.
horse that's totally like jizzing
It's
a
just
huge
peeing,
puddle.
peeing. Jesus Christ.
But yeah, like, and the thing about it is, that cover. I mean, I guess if you really want to get like weird and try to be deep, you could say, oh, well, they're making a statement of, instead of music coming from the soul, their music comes from the penis because they choose to go an alternate route with their music. But I think they just decide they want to do something stupid and weird. They just put a big horse dick, jizzing.
I
That's
always go
really
with
all.
that route. I always just assume that it's something that they can't really explain. Isn't it funny
Yeah.
how we always we all do this character where it's like, oh wait, what were they trying to explain? It's like, well, the blue drapes in this literature means blah blah blah. Like the stuff that they taught you in English in high school just to
Right.
over analyze everything. I guess it does have its place, but shit, I don't know. I wanted to ask you about the religious imagery in your room.
Mm.
You have the Madonna and Child painting. You have a shrine in the corner. What was your religious upbringing like when you were a kid, and how do you feel now? I know it's a very general question.
No, no, no. My mom was very, 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 very religious.
Oh,
We would go to church every Sunday. She would go every Sunday and Wednesday. I believe she still does, actually. Um, I went with her until I was around the age of 16 when she stopped making me go, maybe 15. But I like religious art. I'm not a religious person. I have nothing against religious people. Religion doesn't offend me. Bigotry or bigoted ideas pushed through religion offend me. But Current 93 is a Christian band.
really?
Yeah, dude. A lot of people don't know that. David Tibet, who is the main person behind Current 93, he's Catholic, but he's into a lot of the more esoteric elements of Catholicism and Christianity. He's not just one of those I go to church all day type of dudes. Like he studied Anton LaVey. No, I'm sorry, not Anton LaVey. Aleister Crowley.
Oh,
He's really into like all that kind of stuff. That stuff is really interesting to me, but I can't grasp my head around it. I think only crazy people can grasp that kind of stuff. And David Tibet is borderline crazy. At the same time of being a genius. So he can understand that shit. I don't get it. But yeah, man, I'm not a religious person at all. I have nothing against religion. I think you can take certain elements from just about any religion and relate it to your life and make it better. You know. And that includes, that's everything from Christianity to Buddhism to Satanism. I mean, you can pull elements from any religion and say, okay, I can start practicing that, and that will make my time on this earth a little bit easier.
yeah.
You know,
But you said something interesting about David Tibet and being crazy and also borderline genius, and it seems to me like there's this great correlation between those two things, mental illness versus creativity, and even great leaders, political leaders, business minds. It just seems over and over again to be able to affect people on a massive scale with your creative stuff, a business or something like that. It just seems like you have to sort of be standing on this edge where you're just a step or two away from being committed to a hospital or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about that? What do you think the relation is between these two things? Like, why is it this way, in your opinion?
Um, why do I think that when you reach certain levels of intelligence, it sometimes results in? Well, I think that certain people, they get to a point where they're so smart they think about things that other people don't really think about. Like they think about things that we may ignore. Like I think that people will call someone crazy and then just dismiss them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really the ass backwards way of looking at this. Like look at someone like Charles Manson. I think people just look at him, they're like, oh, he's nuts. I mean, he is nuts, but at the same time, if you listen to some of the stuff that he's saying, some of it makes sense. Some of it makes sense, and that goes for anybody. In any of these, like when I actually met David Tibet when I was in San Francisco, um, and just talking to him for the 10 or 15 minutes that I got to talk to him, you get a completely different feel than you get from talking to just your average Joe. Like you really feel like this guy sees things that you don't see. And I don't mean like ghosts or aliens or stupid shit like that. I mean that he sees the world differently than you see it. You're walking down the street and you're focusing solely on where am I going? Where is the end game? Like I am trying to get from A to B. What's the easiest way to get to B? With someone like David Tibet, I feel like he's walking down the same path, but instead of just focusing on A to B, he's looking at F, he's looking at W, he's looking at X, he's looking at Y, and he's absorbing all of this stuff. And when you do that, when your mind is that open, that's gotta fuck you up a little bit.
Mm.
You know, when you're really absorbing every single thing around you, that's got to affect you. We don't do that. I mean, I can't speak for you, but I don't do that. And most of my friends don't do that.
Yeah.
I can walk down the sidewalk and I can completely ignore what's to my left and what's to my right. But people like Charles Manson, they don't, man. I think they really focus on everything. And then they either become paranoid and they start thinking, okay, there's too much crazy shit going on from left to right, from up to down that I can't take it all. Or they try to force process it. And that's got to be pretty difficult for your mind too, right?
Yeah. I think another big thing is the isolation. When you are a certain way, and you're not in the right community of people who will help you foster ideas or help you feel like you're not alone. I mean, it seems like if you're not in art school or something like that, and you're thinking like
Yeah.
David Tibet is, people are gonna like. What if he was a construction worker? Do you know what I mean? Like they'd be like, this dude is fucking crazy. Isolate him. You know, like don't talk to this guy. He's just fucking weird, and he wouldn't have people to associate with it as much. And I think we do unfortunately live in a society that sort of stifles creativity that way, or
Yeah.
just will isolate people. Like I said, if you're weird, and I think you were mentioning in high school you were listening to a lot of different music, and I think I share a lot of similarities with you because I grew up in a predominantly black and Hispanic neighborhood, and I was like reading books all the time, and people always told me I talked white. I'm sure you heard this since you were a kid, the whole talking white thing, and it's like it ends up isolating you, and you end up trying to figure out who you fit in with, if anyone at all. I think it can sort of be a positive thing if you're, I guess, if you have a strong sense of self, because you're like, okay, maybe I don't need other people's approval as much,
Yep.
which is a really powerful thing, I guess. And I guess in the right dosage, you can end up doing stuff like Death Grips, where they end up releasing an album because they don't give a fuck
Yeah.
what people think. I mean, I guess they probably care to a little extent, but
Of course, of course. Everyone cares to a certain degree. I mean, I know even, I say all the time that I don't care about what this person says. I don't care what that person says, but deep down, some of that stuff does bother me, but I think the way that I grew up, when I moved to Georgia from California and I literally had no friends, and it was a situation where the white kids thought I was just too weird to hang out with, and the black kids looked at me and they were just like, okay, he thinks he's white, so therefore we don't want to hang out with him either. So I had no one to hang out with for God, a good year or so after I moved here. That's when I started like really getting into skateboarding, and that was when I finally started making friends because you had something in common.
mm,
There weren't very many skaters, so you really had, it was like a forced friendship, forced camaraderie. You had no one else around, but yeah, I when I was in high school, I did listen to a lot of different music, and hardcore hip hop was not one of those preferred genres that I was really into. So people just thought I was automatically weird. White kids looked at me and they're like, why is he not listening to rap? What's wrong with him? And then the black kids were like, why doesn't he like Dr. Dre? Like, I just want to beat his ass. Just,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I want to fuck him up because, something about him doesn't make any sense. And yeah, just like you, I did hear the you talk white thing, and that shit doesn't bother me. And all that really means to me is you speak proper English, which that's really sad that the black community looks at proper English as being something that doesn't belong to them.
It really is, but I see this other issue where there's I don't know if the word is xenophobia. It's I don't know if that's the word, but it seems to me like in the black community there's a fear of being different.
Yeah.
It's like it's okay if you act within these parameters. Actually, maybe every community has this, but it's like you have to live within this thing, and if you step out of that circle and you start you do stuff that it's a little out of the norm, whatever that bell curve is in the middle of the bell curve, it's like hey, don't do that, and they'll sort of like I keep saying, isolate you or just try and push you out of the group so that you're not fitting in.
Yep. No, that's absolutely right. And you said it, like the black community is the worst with that. And we've discussed this on Dead in Hip Hop, that like on our drive back from Florida, Modest Media, the camera guy, he was asking me, he's like, so do you primarily date white women? And I said, no, white women primarily date me. The thing is, how many black women would be cool with my lifestyle?
Right.
You know what I mean? How many black women do you know? Now, of course, skinny jeans are cool now. They weren't, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago when I thought they were cool. So there were no black women that would want to hang out with me or talk to me. Plus me being vegan, that's just weird for the black community. The fact that I don't just listen to hip hop, the fact that I like country music, I like death metal, all of those things, that's not something your average black woman my age would be interested in being bothered with. Because the black community as a whole doesn't see that as normal. And what's not normal to them is automatically, it needs to be either corrected or ousted or isolated, like you said.
Yeah, it's just that idea of other. It's really
yeah.
I don't know. I see that a lot. I mean, there are a lot of people who are inclusive. And, like they'll be okay. It's like okay, you're fucking weird, but we're still cool anyway. But
yeah,
once I left high school, I started meeting a lot more people who were a little cooler. I was in an art program, and that's where I guess that's where you meet weirdos. Oh, man.
See, yeah, no, you're right. I didn't have that in my school. I had to meet people outside of my high school. When I started getting involved with punk rock and hardcore, that's when I started meeting like-minded people. But I didn't have a cool art program at my school. The artists, they weren't really artists. They were just dudes who didn't want to go to regular class. They didn't think differently. They didn't, they didn't do anything differently. They just didn't want to be in social studies. Or they didn't want to be in PE.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, let's go take art. I really wanted to go in there and draw shit. They didn't.
Yeah. It's weird, man. Did you go to Art Institute?
I did. I went to Art Institute.
Did you end up getting a lot of debt? Like my roommate went to one of those institutions. Oh boy, was it bad?
Man, not only am I in tons of debt to the Art Institute, I learned next to nothing at the Art Institute.
Shit, man.
So it was a complete, I don't want to say it was a waste of a degree, but it's not, the degree is not worth what I'm paying for it.
Yeah. I think it sucks that we're doing this to kids. I mean, there are a lot of kids in this country who just want to, like, they leave high school and like, okay, I want to be an artist. And that's great and everything, but it just seems like, I don't think you need to spend a lot of money to meet other creative people and like you said, the skills you need to learn to be an artist or whatever, like you just don't have to spend all that money for it. I mean, the networking opportunities seem to be the best thing that they have to offer.
Yeah. I think the best thing about art school is it puts you in contact with other like-minded people. I think that's really the only strong benefit of art school, because depending on the type of art that you do, you really don't need a foundation. The foundation's your mind. The
Yeah.
foundation's your imagination. So like my girlfriend's always like, "Oh, I can't paint. I can't draw." Who says?
Right.
Like who says you can't paint or can't draw? Like who says that you have to be able to do everything super tech? Like do you know who Ed Templeton is?
Well, what? What did he do? 30 Days of Night.
No, Ed
What?
Templeton, he was a skater. Um back in my day when I was younger, he was a skater.
Oh wow.
And he just started doing like this really abstract art. And I think it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. But you know what? If you take some of his work and you show it to somebody and you say, "Oh, a 10-year-old kid did this," or my 10-year-old niece did this, they'd be like, "Oh, that's cute." But if you show that to an actual artist, like they'll get it.
Yeah.
Like your mind thinks in the same wavelengths. So that's the best part about being in art school. Like you go to art school and you have these ideas of what I can do on a piece of paper, and all the people around you when you were in high school, they didn't fucking get it. They looked at you like, "What is that? That's
Yeah.
bullshit." But then you finally get to art school and you start doing the same shit, and they're like, "Man, that's fucking cool." Because they're thinking on a different wavelength. It's just like we were talking about with David Tibet. Like artists think on a totally different wavelength than everybody else. A to an artist may not mean A. It may mean K.
Yeah.
You know? You know what I mean? Like blue to
I
an
do.
artist might be yellow. It's just we don't think the same.
So I mean, what you're getting at is it's also a support group, to meet
Yes.
other people, and they encourage you to keep doing your weird shit. Because I think I heard some quote somewhere, and I think this is very true that I think with most people, everyone, artists you'll get a crazy idea and you'll think to yourself, I want to make this thing happen. I want to make it go from an idea to something physical that I can share with people.
Yeah.
But you might be concerned with people thinking that you're too weird or crazy or like they're gonna judge you. And the crazy thing is that's the gold right there. Like that's
Yeah.
the platinum that you have in your brain. And if you don't make that thing, the farther you get away from that, the more average work you'll make. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah,
It's
totally.
that thing that you're scared of making that is probably what you should be doing. Like Death Grips, like those guys, that shit they're creating, it's never gonna get radio play, and it's something people are scared of it. It's strange, but look how successful they are, and like they're creating what they want to make. I don't know.
And that's rare. That's rare. Like people look at people look at people like Kanye West and they're like, "Oh, he's different and he's breaking the mold and he's doing everything that he wants to do." Yeah, he is, but he is not on the same
Yeah,
wavelength as people like Death Grips or Blackie or K the Eye or Bus Driver. You know, they're not on the same wavelength. They think completely differently. They look at music differently.
yeah,
And I mean, I don't know any of these guys personally, but I'd almost say this is factual. I don't think that Kanye West walks into a studio and sits down and has the same frame of mind when he's making a track as Bus Driver. I don't think that they walk in, they're thinking the same thing, or they're even thinking on the same plane. That's the beauty of artists, man. Like
yeah,
we're all over the place.
yeah,
Nothing against Kanye. Like Kanye's great, but he's not really breaking any molds, dude. He's not doing anything that's super different. Like I would like to think that in 10 years people are going to look back at groups like Blackie and Death Grips and LP and Soul and K the Eye and they're gonna, and Beans and they're gonna say
I don't know any of
those.
these. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. But I would hope that they would look back at this and they'd say those guys were changing rap music. Those guys were changing the perception of rap music. They were the Pablo Picassos of their time. They were looking at music and saying, you know what? That's great, but that's not what I want to do. I want to stretch this as far as I can stretch it. And I hope Death Grips continues to do that.
I get the impression that they will, and I also get the impression that I was thinking the other day, this has to be future rap music. This has to be what it's gonna sound like, and I don't know. I get that feeling. It's because it's going to be. it's going to be something that we listen to and we're going to be like, I can't believe kids are listening to this shit. What is this? And I get that. Listening to Death Grips now, like, half of it I'll just be bobbing my head, and the other half I'm like, man, I don't fucking get this. And I think that's what, sometimes it feels like I'm in some sort of computer. It feels like it's an angry computer. It's like all the digital sounds they put in there, and I don't fucking know. Weird ass band.
But you know what?
Go ahead.
Being an artist, dude, you don't have to get it.
Yeah.
The only thing that you have to get is this is a different way of thinking. And I don't think many people look at it that way. Like, they put on something like Death Grips and they're just like, oh, I don't understand it. It makes no sense. Turn it off. But people that think on a similar wavelength that they do, we look at it and we say, you know what? I don't have to understand it. All I know is they are thinking about music differently than this person. So I can appreciate that. No, go ahead.
I think this is a marker of contemporary modern art. I think this idea, what we're talking about, saying you don't have to get it, I think that's postmodern. I hate that term. I don't even know what it means. But I think that's what it means. Like, you can look at something and you don't have to understand it. I think way back, just think about how art was made in the 1700s, like classical music, just paintings of like pretty white people. No one was making anything that didn't make sense. It was all like, well, I guess like when you painted something, it had to look like reality.
Right.
So like, just progressively we're getting like the Impressionists making weird shit, and now you can have a painting where it's just two splotches of color, and I mean, you just scratch your head like, what the fuck is going on? But
exactly. You're exactly right. And then when you had like when that kind of thing started, when it was like the surrealists were doing these weird things that were not reality. You had people that were like-minded that got it, and they were like, okay, I don't fully understand this, but there's something about this that's beautiful. There's something about this that's intriguing and interesting. But you had the what do you call them? The purists that were immediately saying, this isn't art. This is not art. And then look how long it took them to finally fucking get it.
Yeah.
Years later. It's the same thing with groups like Death Grips. Right now, all these fucking purists are, oh, this isn't hip hop, this isn't rap. Maybe 30 years from now, they're going to look back at this shit and they're going to say, you know what? That was rap. Why the fuck was no one understanding this? Why the fuck was no one jumping on this? You know, when you look back at stuff that I don't know, like you said, the surrealists and the impressionists were doing, you can't wrap your mind around the idea that was not art.
Yeah.
But if you were in that time period, it was just like, this is bullshit. This isn't art. I can't tell what this is. And now, just like you said, anyone can go up and throw 2 dots on a canvas. This is now a painting. I don't have to understand it. The only thing that I have to do is tell myself there was a reason that the person did it that way. Just like I look at Death Grips, there's a reason why he makes music this way, or they make music this way.
I guess I'm thinking to myself, on the flip side, it's like we still seem to be sort of tied down the ideas of structure. I mean, this is just something we have to. I'm really going back on what I said. I mean, there seems to be things like form and structure that we have to abide by. So, because I mean, that's why. I guess that's why some things don't sound good or look good. Like when I say, like if I say that I'm a portrait artist, right? And I make stuff and it just doesn't even look like a person. It's like, shit. I don't even know where I'm going with this.
No, I do.
It's like things are sort of grounded in reality, right? A little bit.
Right. Because if you say you're a portrait artist, people think that whatever you draw has to look exactly like what you're drawing.
Yeah.
But to them, not to you. To you, it does look like what you're drawing. You could have an eyeball here, a mouth over here, one arm, but in the artist's mind, it makes sense. That's your interpretation of what you saw. It doesn't have to be exactly what every other viewer in the world sees. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what being an artist is about.
I've been struggling with this lately because sometimes friends will send me links to artists who do stuff with like ballpoint pens, and they're like, oh yeah, they only use cheese doodles or ballpoint pens to make portraits of some guy's photorealistic drawing of their face, and I'm like, oh god, I hate this shit. It's just, I feel like it does nothing for me, or I think art in general, it doesn't mean anything. I
Yeah.
don't know. Do you ever get that? Do you see these? It's always it'll be on Yahoo or yeah, it'll be a popular post on Yahoo where it's like, oh, this person drew a Disney princesses using like I don't know, like Vaseline or something, and oh, it looks great. What the fuck?
Right. So my thing is, what's the point?
Yeah, that's what I
What's
think
the
too.
point?
I just don't.
Like all that stuff again, I relate it to music too. Just like I was telling you about No Boughton. Like those guys, they made their own instruments. Now, if they did that and then they came out sounding like the Beatles, I'd say, what was the fucking point? What? Like, why bother? Like, why bother
That'll be
doing
funny as
something
shit
that's
though.
so
You gotta
different?
admit, that'll be hilarious.
I mean, I would be pissed. I would be pissed if a band came and they said, "Yeah, we made our instruments out of scrap metal," and then here's "Hey Jude." I'd be like, "Dude, you guys are fucking lame. You guys are lame as shit. Like, I don't understand. That's fucking lame." Just like, why would you put that much time and effort into making something that looks extremely stereotypical? Just so you can say, "Oh, that was really hard to make." That's the way I look at it. Like those dudes that I know exactly what you're talking about. The
Yeah.
people that will make, these huge sculptures of like the Eiffel Tower out of popsicle sticks and toothpicks.
Right.
Why? Why? So you can say I was the guy that did that? That's not to me an artist's frame of mind.
But you know
Just to
what's
just say I
weird?
did something that was difficult. Who cares?
The weird thing is, like, I could play devil's advocate and think to myself, well, what if that guy says to you that's his concept of art is working really hard on something that might be mundane for like I've heard this. Some
Yeah.
people will do like, oh yeah, these repetitive marks that I make, I've done it for like 40 days, and this is art to me. Just the process of fuck, I don't even know.
No, I get that. Like that.
But I guess they don't really say that, do they?
No, they do. I've heard that
Oh yeah.
before. That I've spent 45 hours on this painting, and or this piece, and it's literally just cross stitching, but the tightest, most precise, detailed cross stitching you could ever see in your life.
Yeah.
But if all of that cross stitching, if I stepped back and it was Abraham Lincoln and I could clearly tell it was Abraham Lincoln, I would just be like, why did you waste your time doing that? What was the reasoning? Now, of course, it's the artist's piece, and I'm not in his frame of mind completely, so maybe there's something that I just don't understand, but I just don't understand the point.
Yeah.
I don't get the point.
It seems to me like now there's also a big I guess it's like if you're gonna sell your art, this is probably outside of music, but like visual arts, you have to convince people somehow why it's good.
Yeah.
Because it just seems like you can't, like, you gotta be able to tell people why in your mind your stuff is worth something. And I was thinking, like you'll go through a museum and you'll see a canvas that just has a black square on it. I personally don't like that shit, but theoretically, if the guy believes enough in his work, and if he actually made it so that if he actually believed enough in what he did, he could probably explain to you why it's amazing and why you should buy it. I mean,
Right.
I guess I'm still trying to figure that out, how to do that. Convince people to spend $1 million on something I make. Because if you could do that, you won. I feel
Yeah.
like you just. Fuck. So I guess I'm gonna start closing this out by asking you. Yeezus is gonna be. Why did I call him Yeezus? Kanye is gonna be in Atlanta on December 1st.
Yes.
Are you gonna go to the show?
No.
What?
No.
Dude.
I'll tell you why.
Oh,
I'll tell you
boy.
why.
Uh,
If Kanye was charging a ticket price that was not more than a day's salary, I would consider it. But
Mm.
I'm sorry, but I absolutely refuse to pay, $200 to see anyone. For $200, it needs to be a festival. And there needs to be at least 12 acts that I have not seen before, or I've seen and they blew me away. And matter of fact, if I'm gonna go to a show and it's three dudes and it's $200, two of those three better have previously been dead, and I don't want to see a hologram. They better have figured out some way to come back. Like it
Reanimation.
used to be Michael Jackson and Biggie. You know what I
Wow.
mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm not paying that kind of money, and the fact that these guys came from a relatively modest background, and you know that a lot of your audience are working class people. What makes you think? What gives you the right and the fucking audacity to think that I need to pay you $200 for a seat to watch you perform your songs? That's ludicrous to me.
See,
Like if people,
this is going back to the thing. This is just like that square painting on the wall. Somehow, I've been convinced by Kanye West. This is why he's won. He's convinced me that it costs $160 to go see him, and I paid. So I mean, I guess if people like me stopped doing it, I don't know.
well, no,
I
and I do go on these rants, and I'm not going on the rants to make people feel bad for what they're
no,
doing.
I understand. Yeah.
I want the artists themselves to think about this. Think about the poor Chicago high school kid that would love to come see you play. And he looks up and he says, "Oh shit, this ticket's $175." So if he's the good poor Chicago kid, he says, "Well, fuck, I guess I just can't go." Or what about that Chief Keef style Chicago kid that says, "I'm gonna get that money because I'm gonna go see Kanye West and I'm gonna go jack somebody to get that money."
Well, you're getting into
How is
personal.
he
You're
gonna
getting into
feel?
responsibility now. Do you think so? Is the artist? You're saying that he has to claim a little bit of responsibility for the kid who.
No, no, not at
Because
all.
I guess he would be a little bit responsible for it, maybe in this.
No, I don't think he has any. I don't think he has any responsibility in that situation. But what I think is he should still think about the ramifications of his actions. Me charging you $160 may mean that someone that this concert would mean the world to will not get to see it. Who's going to get to see Kanye West? It's going to be a whole bunch of people that can afford that kind of shit and that may not even look at music the same way Kanye West looks at music.
Hmm.
Like I'd love to see Kanye and I have $160. I just don't feel like he's worth me paying that kind of money for. When I was talking about going to see Current 93, I flew from Atlanta to San Francisco by myself
God damn.
to go see him, and he played two shows, and I bought tickets for both shows. Now that trip, as a whole, probably cost me, God, close to $400, $450, but it was worth every penny. I think that David Tibet is on a completely different plane, musically, artistically, mentally, everything with an LY than Kanye West. If Current 93 came to my town and he said my tickets are $200, I'd go. I'd go. But Kanye West, I don't think that he's worth it.
Oh,
I don't think
I see
any
what you're saying.
rapper right now is worth it. I don't think
None.
and I none. I don't think any rapper on earth right now is worth $200 for a concert. And I think that it's a really fucked up way of thinking for them to think that they should charge. Rap music is an urban music.
It's
Rap
true.
music,
It's true, man.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like you're supposed to not. But then again, like you said, you're getting into responsibility. But I think that you should think about how did I grow up? Did I grow up with hundreds of dollars just laying around where I can just go throw at artists? Most rappers didn't. Jay-Z didn't grow up that way.
Yeah,
You know
but
what I mean?
his whole his work now is so it's based on the baller status now.
Right.
It's not about it, it just he'll talk a little bit about how he slung crack for like 10 days or whatever, but now his work is all about I'm at the top now. You can't be like me. Which is that's always bothered me in rap
Me
music.
too. He should look at it and say, I'm at the top right now. I want to inspire you to get to the top right now.
Well, all right. I've been trying to find the devil's advocate route for the last 10 minutes. I think I just found it. He would say that I am encouraging kids maybe to get like me. You think that's what he would say? Something like that.
No, because if you were doing that, you charge $20 for your tickets. Any way you look at it, Jay-Z is gonna leave a tour rich. Kanye West is gonna leave a tour rich.
Yeah.
Going overboard is unnecessary. These artists do it because they can. They do it because they know people will pay. I think that motherfucker should stand up and be like, I'm not paying you this money. I'm not giving you $200. What am I getting out of this? I'm getting an hour of you jumping around and playing your hits. I'm getting you bring out white Jesus and cursing at him. I'm getting you being a pseudo intellectual jackass for $200, and then I get to see you perform my favorite songs. I don't see it, dude. I just don't see it. I think that these guys should look at the youth and they should say, you know what? I want people that were like me when I was younger to be able to see where I got. They'll never do that if you're charging them $200 for a ticket.
That is such an ideal world you're describing right now. That's
I
it's
know.
so it's oh man.
I
And
know.
when these guys idolize having so much money, it's like how else are they gonna get it? They want all of these objects and things and to say that they're at the top. God damn.
But you know what
What they're
though?
born
But you know what though? They should stop and they should think, how did I get here? I got to this spot on the backs of all of these poor black kids who bought my music. That's how I got here. Kanye West got there on our backs. So why should he not feel responsible to give a little bit of something back? How about every once in a while? Okay, fine. You want to play these $200 ticket shows? Fine, do that. But how about every couple of years you do the Broke Negro tour? You play shows for $15. You're already rich. You can afford to do that. It's not going to hurt
You know
anything.
what? That would change the game if he did that.
Wouldn't it?
You know what it would be like? It would be the equivalent of how Louis C.K. put out that video for $5. Remember that?
Oh yeah,
It would just be a death blow, just like he did. Because now everyone's doing it. They're like, shit, I can't charge $30 for my special. I gotta do $5.
Exactly.
God damn,
It's
that's
like
crazy.
the habitat. It's like the habitat of humanity for hip hop. Like you're giving back to people because you can. Instead, these motherfuckers don't give back. They just keep taking. They take and take and take and take and take until we stop giving it to them because we stop caring about them. If they give back, maybe we care about them longer.
That's true. Maybe we'll see that.
I don't know, dude. I think you're right in that it's a really ideal frame of mind that's not realistic.
With that being said, on that note, I'm going to when I see this show, I know I'll be thinking about this shit. Like, God damn it, Mike was right. But I'm gonna have to convince myself I paid this money. I'm gonna have to enjoy this shit. I'm gonna have to just squeeze my time out and just drink every drop of those dollars I bought. Like, oh, this is great, even if it's shitty. All right,
Well, I hope you enjoy it. I do. I really hope you enjoy it a lot.
I'll let you
Like,
know, man. I hope it's one of my best shows I've been to. Thanks so much for talking to me, man. It's been great.
Of course. Of course. This was fun.